Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Two Saints podcast show. So, just going to introduce my co-host, Mark H. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, everything's going well, mate. Obviously, it's been a relief this week and big win for us as well on Tuesday night. So it was full steam ahead. Already, I'm looking forward to next season, even though this season hasn't ended.
Absolutely.
But I'm pretty confident that we can, buck the trend and maybe go undefeated till the end of the season.
Wouldn't that be great? So just a reminder, the ways to access the Two Saints podcast show are coming up right now. Just to remind you all, you can contact us via our email address, the Two Saints podcast show at outlook.com, for questions or items you'd like to hear in future shows. You can listen to the radio show on Fiesta 95 FM in Southampton and via onlineradiobox.com. Also, the Two Saints podcast show is now available via Spotify, Overcast, Acast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music and Podbean, or via our Facebook page, The Two Saints Show, and our YouTube channel, The Two Saints Podcast Show. There you go, that's those out of the way. And the show's email address is the Two Saints Podcast Show at outlook.com. That's for anything to do with the show, any questions you've got, any future features you'd like to see, or any issues with the show, or anything we cover. If there's anything you want to discuss with us, let us know, positive or negative feedback. We can't do the show without you, and we appreciate it. So, coming up in the first half, we have the Two Saints review of Liverpool 2, Saints 0, and Saints 3, Crystal Palace 1, along with Saints Club news. So, yeah, one loss and one win. The Liverpool game, me and Mark quite rightly predicted the scoreline, but we'll get to that in a bit. So, a little jingle coming up for you first, and then we'll do the Two Saints review of Liverpool 2, Saints 0. We'll be back shortly.
It's the Two Marks, C&H, on the Two Saints Show, Fiesta 95 FM.
Right, welcome back. The Two Saints review of Liverpool 2, Saints 0. Saints edged out at Anfield. Hasenhüttl, we did not take advantage. Jack Stevens, a lot of frustration. Yeah, not as much as for the rest of us, Jack. But anyway, apart from me and Mark, who predicted quite correctly 2-0 to Liverpool. Nailed it again. Oh dear.
I've got to say, it was probably, we had our moments, Mark, and it's all about taking your moments. And in truth, it was probably fairly comfortable for Liverpool without them necessarily playing well, because I didn't actually think they played that well.
Yep.
I think, if we were slightly further up the table and maybe in better form, it may have been a different kettle of fish. But I didn't like some of the criticism that Shea Adams was getting afterwards. Well, obviously I'm not on social media at the minute. You know the reason for that, but I've heard that he was getting a bit of stick, obviously. And I just sort of thought to myself, you need to be looking in maybe in other places because, as we've seen and we're going to come on to, Danny Ings and him I think it's a good partnership. Yeah. But there you go anyway. I mean, the one thing I will say, Mark, and I've got to get this one off my chest, is so Mohamed Salah, right, comes on against Leicester, right? Defends manfully with the rest of the other 9 players in the team for 80 minutes, right? And that doesn't warrant a start against Liverpool.
Unbelievable.
Right? And bear in mind, and we're going to come on to it later on in the show, right, that, Ralph keeps bringing up people like Nathan Teller and Salasy. And I sort of sit there and I think to myself, why then, if you have that much belief and faith in them, or whatever you want to call it, why are these people not getting more of an opportunity? I mean,
the thing is,
he always tends. I mean, I've noticed in the last few games, every time that the shit hits the proverbial fan, right, he brings Mohamed Salah on. You're sat there thinking to yourself, obviously you rate him, but you're not prepared to start him in any games.
The thing is, you put yourself in the position of the manager, Mark, right? So you've got a Eurofighter Typhoon, Mach 2 jet in Mohamed Salah, and you've got RMS Titanic in Yannick Vestergaard. There's no choice, is there? You put the Eurofighter Typhoon in,
Well, quite clearly, you put the Titanic on, mate, the best link from Belfast to Southampton. But what was I going to say to you? I mean, the reason people are probably missing the reason why I'm saying it. I think it was the second goal that our good friend, Sadio Mane scored, right? And you can't tell me, right? You can't tell me that if he had a jump for that ball, right, and headed it, it would have been down the other end of the field. But
yeah, if anybody's not sure what Mark means, I can now tell you Yannick's middle name now is now Yannick the Duck Vestergaard.
I have to say, as the ball's coming across, unless he was getting a shout from KWP as if to say, don't worry, I've got it covered, relax. That's the only thing I can think of. And then I'm looking at him and I'm thinking to myself, this guy is as big as the Eiffel Tower, right?
Yeah.
And he actually looked like he ducked under the ball.
Thing is, Mark, I remember when I used to play in goal as well, and even when I played football in goal at school, my thing to the people in front of me that were defending was always, unless you get a shout, you clear the damn thing. Simple as that.
The other thing I would say is on reflection about Saturday night also, Mark, is I just think that, and this is the thing against the bigger teams, because Liverpool did have an off night, I'm going to say, or they're having a bit of an off season, really, let's be honest. But I think if you don't take the chances that are presented to you, then you're not going to win football matches against the top teams in the Premier League. And that was kind of a little bit of our own undoing as well, like you have to say.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Yeah, Jack Stevens said there was a lot of frustration. Ralph Hasenhuttl, we didn't take advantage when we had chances. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And we were edged out at Anfield. Couldn't argue with that. I mean, the better team won. And that was that. So we left Anfield a little bit disappointed, obviously, and then praying that Fulham and Burnley, that Fulham were going to get relegated, that Burnley were going to win. And lo and behold, Mark had the prayer mats out and everything else, and it worked.
Yeah, I mean, I had the prayer mats out on Monday night, pointing eastwards, But yeah, so thankfully, okay, you can turn around and you can say that Tuesday night was a bit of a non-event, but actually it was quite a good game, and most of the good games this season for Saints, it was fairly open. But having said that, I mean, to go 1-0 down that quickly and get a warning shot from Benteke in the first instance, Christian Benteke. You sort of sit there and go, right, you've had your warning, and then a minute later, hit the balls in the back of the net, and you're sat there going, oh, didn't learn the first time round, but I mean, thankfully, the strange thing is, I think he scored 4 goals in the last 10, but he's only scored 14 goals, something like that there, in the last three or four seasons with Crystal Palace. And in his first season, he scored 14 for Crystal Palace.
Ironically, Mark, I think you'll find that Benteke's actually scored against Saints on 9 occasions.
Yeah,
quite a record against us.
Obviously, he's got the voodoo sign over us, but
he does like a goal against Saints.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean.
So anyway, they go 1-0 up, and then lo and behold, a bit like, it did honestly remind me of the Liverpool winner, Danny Ings' first goal, because there's absolutely nothing on. Doesn't look like he's going to be doing anything. And then all of a sudden, just a turn of the shot from absolutely nowhere, and you're sat there going, the man's genius.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's got his back to goal. Ball comes into him. He gets a little bit lucky, actually, because I watched the replay, but ball comes into him, brings it down with his foot, comes off the comes off the Crystal Palace player's shin a little bit, only a fraction, but bounces, and obviously he turns and hits it first time, and back in the net. No chance for the keeper. Absolutely brilliant finishes, and as you said, nothing on whatsoever. But the touch to bring it down out of sky was absolutely exquisite, and then the finish was even better.
In the last 2 and a bit seasons, that basically sums him up for me. There's nothing on in front of him. There's no one ahead of him. And then all of a sudden, he just turns something into complete magic.
Oh, he's
you sort of sit there going, he's going nowhere with that.
Yeah. It's literally out of nothing. It's bang. It's in the back of the net, and that was great.
Yeah.
I mean, they stormed back after that, to be fair. Ralph said it was one of our better games.
I know we have sat here, and, we've gone through the wrongs and the rights of signing contracts, with both himself and Ryan Bertrand. But we've both also said that we would have liked nothing more than for both of them to sign the contract.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the summer. But having said that, when he's doing things like that there, you just sort of sit and you think, where would this football club at the moment be? Was it not? I mean, there is a support cast, but the thing is it's obvious that he carries it on a pitch. And the thing is Mark, as well, is the nice thing was that I always knew that he'd come back before the end of the season, because, the cynics out there might talk about transfers, transfer to a bigger club in the summer, but I tend to think to myself, well, there's a big summer coming ahead for England, and I'm sure you want to be part of that squad.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to just say is, in regards to basically the transfer, I mean, I decided that I was going to listen to or watch Match of the Day. So I listened to Match of the Day. For my sins, I made a mistake of listening to the analysis, if you can call it that, afterwards, right? And is it Dan Walker, the presenter? And he was deliberately taking Dion Dublin down one road, which was basically Danny's leaving Saints in the summer, and Dion Dublin had absolutely nowhere to go with. He's sitting there going, oh yes, I think a big club will be definitely coming in for him if he's doing things like that. I'm thinking, oh goodness sake.
Unbelievable.
But anyway, the rest of the game, sorry. So just to recap quickly on the rest of the game. So, a ball comes in for the second one from Stuart Armstrong, and it goes across goal. And the person you expect to be on the end of it at the far post is Jack Stevens. The ball absolutely misses Jack Stevens. It was a bit like a Jan Veltengard moment, but ball absolutely misses him, right? And who should be there on an acute angle, like you said, right? But Shea Adams, right? And then the last goal was basically a good ball in from James Ward-Prowse. Shea Adams plays a fairly good ball actually into Danny Ings. Danny Ings finishes with aplomb. The other highlights would have been that Jack Stevens showed that he does not concentrate for 90 minutes.
Yep.
There was that episode where he let the ball run under his foot. Ben Teke was straight onto it. He's still, I mean, the thing is ever since he came to our football club, he's done it. And he doesn't learn from it in the sense of concentration, 90 minutes concentration, whatever it is. Yep. And then the other thing that was amazing on the night was obviously Fraser Foster's save, because obviously if you watch the footage, his back leg, I was almost going to say his hind leg there, but his back leg is on the, is actually on the goal line, and it's really, really clever how he does it, because obviously he's a big man, so if he's putting a big stride in, he's still got his foot on the line, and people are sort of sitting there going, because all I could hear was, because we didn't have the watch along, and all I could hear was people, the commentator going, he's off the line, he's off the line, and I'm sitting there going, off the line. You know what I mean? When I seen the footage,
The only thing that annoyed me about that, Mark, is that rule has not been enforced all season. And I was like, that's just blooming typical. They've barely even bothered that rule all season. They're now going to penalise us for it.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is like, I haven't got an issue if there's been an infringement, but I understand what you're saying. They hadn't enforced anything like that all season. We've seen loads of encroachment off the line.
Yeah, and it also proved that certain Saints players should not be trying to make challenges anywhere near the penalty area.
Yeah, and the thing is I've got to say it was a fairly good performance from everybody.
Yeah.
I'm still reticent about Jack going forward. I think he's comfortable enough if he's defending as a right back, although I prefer seeing him, if he's going to play anywhere, and he wouldn't be a first choice anyway, it would be in the centre of the fence. But, as a right back, he's okay as long as he's defending, but Ralph needs to sort that one out. As we've said over the summer, because of the way we play, he needs runners, fullbacks that are runners. Yep. So he needs to sort that out over the summer, because Jack, and I'm trying to be generous here, Mark, when I turn around to say, he has limitations to the way he plays, and Jack Stevens running up and down the wing. I mean, it's not happening, is it? Let's be honest.
Definitely not. No. Right, that brings us to the end of both reviews of those games. So we're just going to give you a little jingle, and when we've done that, we'll do Saints Club news. We'll be right back.
It's Mark C and Mark H. Mark my word, they're here with everything in the Two Saints Show.
Right, well, welcome back, everyone. Saints Club news. Premier League 2 report. Everton 4, Saints 0. The good times continue. Saints youngsters own comeback win, 6-4 against Reading. Women's report. Leicester 2, Saints 1. Saints stores reopen in partnership with Elite Group. Return to St Mary's. Leeds United ticket information. Saints collector's edition out now of the programmes. Sportsbet.io goal of the month for April, and Bertrand to depart Saints. Starting with Premier League 2 report. Everton 4, Saints 2, followed by Saints 0, followed by Saints youngsters own a 6-4 comeback win over Reading. So the good times continue for the under-23s. Mark relegated to Division 2 of Premier League 2, and they go and get stuffed 4-0 by Everton after getting stuffed 5-0 by Everton. If you're going to concede 9 goals to Everton, whatever team you're off, Saints, just do it in one game. It's a lot more less painful.
All I would say, mate, is like it feels like, whenever the BBC have a repeat on, right? And the repeats on a regular basis. Well, that's kind of been the B team season. And like you said, so last weekend, just for those that aren't aware, we lost 5-0 inside St Mary's Stadium to Everton. And obviously Saturday just gone there, we rocked up to Everton with our B team and promptly lost 4-0. And you, like you said, it's probably just as easy just to have a one-off match, lose 9-0 and lick your wounds from that. But all I would say, Mark, is it has been an absolute car crash. Car crash doesn't even cover it. I do wonder what next season holds for the B team, because
I'm gonna throw something at you that I heard on Solent Mark, which came from somebody who's quite in the know when it comes to the youth setup, to be fair, in the academy, because he worked in it for quite a few years, Dave Merrington, who stated that regards to results, this is quite an interesting one. His take on it was, results aren't overly important when it comes to the youngsters. What is important is the sign of a good coach is getting players ready and getting them through to the manager quickly, but making sure they're good enough. So what he was saying was, you make sure your players are good enough. The sign of a good coach is getting those players through to the first team quickly, but making sure they're well enough equipped to actually be effective. So he actually said results aren't that important, but the players coming through is important. And the sign of a good coach is getting that to happen. And I don't think, for me, we've got good enough coaches, because it's not happening.
So you think the players are good enough?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, your job as a coach of the under-23s and the under-18s is to get these players developed and through to the first team as quickly as possible, making sure they're decent players. If you're not doing that, then either the players aren't good enough Or, in tandem with that, you're also failing as a coach. You and I both believe they need to shake up the back room. And based on what I've been hearing, I totally think that's the case. They need to look at shuffling the back room around a bit.
The thing for me, though, and I'm going to touch on it. I know we're going to be speaking about it later on in the podcast. But the thing is, Mark, and I totally endorse what Matt Crocker said on, I think it was last Tuesday night at the fans forum, when he turned around and he said he doesn't expect the B team or even the under 18s to be pulling up branches, because like Dave Merrington said, it's not about that. It's about the development of players for the first, and then bringing them into the first team. Yeah. But the problem within that, Mark, is that if you're constantly losing every week, I'm sorry, a lot of things to do with football is to do with your confidence. And if you're coming into games and you're constantly losing every week, I don't care if you're Pele. Yep. You're not going to be any good to the first team squad if you're coming in from a team that's losing every week.
Example. One of the greatest footballers in the world, Lionel Messi, plays for Argentina in almost every major tournament. They fail to win in almost every major tournament. He's going into those tournaments knowing that in the last tournament they lost. Even Lionel Messi struggles when it comes to international tournaments because his team constantly loses. And that's an effect.
And he probably feels the burden of carrying, the nation's hopes. Yep. But the other thing, then Maradona did as well, but he was able to carry it off. But then, having said that, Mark, just to go back, I mean, I didn't actually say what Matt Crocker actually said, and that was that he doesn't expect them to be winning titles. What he expects is obviously the development through, but he also said within that, I expect us to be competitive.
Yeah, and
he
that's
said
right.
We're not even competitive.
Yeah.
We look like, they look like to me they've been thrown together. The B team looks like it's thrown together every week in the car park.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you.
And what concerns me is that there's too many people, too many Saints fans out there that are pinning their hopes on the likes of Omafemi and, quite a few others, that we seen were playing last week and went out and lost 5-0. Yep. You're sat there going, there isn't that much coming through. I mean, it's kind of what the hierarchy at the club said. You're going to go through maybe periods, maybe five years, where you might get only one decent player.
Do you know what?
5 years.
Dave Merrington said the exact same thing. Yeah. So anyway, moving on to the under 18s, who obviously got a 6-4 win over Reading, comeback win. So that was not bad, was it? A 10-goal thriller.
Yeah, I mean, with the season that they've had, it's sort of good that it finished on a positive note, Mark. Obviously, they'd gone behind, so it was a bit of a comeback win, and hopefully it's not. You can't really say that it gives them something to build on for next season. That's just a ridiculous remark. But the thing is, it's a morale booster. You do wonder whether any of that group will actually make the grade at Saints. But let's see what happens.
Absolutely. So moving on to the women who are continuing their warm up for their FA Cup. Vitality FA Cup game against Birmingham, obviously. Went down 2-1 to Leicester. Narrowly defeated, Mark, but no shame in that. I was quite buoyed by that, actually.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I think that it's, on the face of it, I would say it's a good result. I mean, the thing is Leicester sort of more or less cruised the championship. I mean, I think they won it with about a fortnight to spare. So, fair play to them. And then you look at the opposition that the women will be playing on Sunday, and it's 12:30, people. If you want to get up, make sure that you're up and about and ready on the Sunday morning, 12:30. Hopefully it'll be shown on YouTube or Facebook or that. The club will show it. But the interesting thing about it, Mark, is obviously Leicester went up. We've run them close. Birmingham have struggled this season. They only just avoided relegation. Bristol City women ended up getting relegated because there was only one team that went down. Right. Birmingham finished second from bottom, so it'll be interesting to see if we, all things being equal, losing 2-1 to Leicester, because I'm not expecting to see Leicester come back down next season straight away. So, I think it's going to be a very even-Steven game, mate. I really do.
Yeah, me too.
If they could nick it, that means that they'll end up in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. I mean,
it would be nice.
Fantastic.
It'd be nice to have some. It'd be nice to have some new FA Cup memories, even if it's not the men's team.
Exactly. And the thing is, if you and I have had our jobs by the time that the women go to the final, you never know if they're allowed to have a crowd in.
Yeah. I'd want to see that, to be fair. So we'll move on to the next story, which is relating to the Saints stores are reopening. Southampton supporters will be able to enjoy an improved shopping experience from the Saints stores now they've reopened, thanks to a new partnership with Elite Group. The online Saints store is now available again for fans to buy merchandise, with the Stadium store having reopened on Saturday. As part of the club's ongoing improvement to its retail offering, clubs partnered with Elite Group to further their commitment to providing the best shopping experience possible for fans and customers around the world. This partnership follows on from the significant investment already made in the recent overhaul. Elite Group have 25 years of experience as experts in all categories of football merchandise, including an exclusive brand partnership with Hummel in the UK and relationships with 65 football clubs across Europe. Through their partnership with Hummel, Elite Group manage all aspects of design, supply chain and logistics for professional clubs across the country, allowing for an operating model that's agile and responsive to the needs of the club. They will now manage the club's full retail operation from production through to distributing products to fans whilst improving the customer journey. This will also allow the Elite Group to manage and innovate the products and design range, giving the club a greater influence on the range of merchandise it provides for supporters. And I know Mark's got his own view on what sort of range they should be extending.
Yes, well, I mean, the first thing I would say is, the women's range needs to be extended and it needs to be properly catered for size-wise for the women, but there needs to be a greater. I'd like to see a more extended range for them. And also, Mark, something that wasn't addressed in the article that you just read out, Southampton Football Club and Elite Group, please remember that there's people that are bigger than 2XL. I mean, most of the Saints fans that I know are bigger than 2XL, trust me.
That's very true. Very true. So anyway, we'll move on to the next story. Return to St Mary's, Leeds United ticket information. Southampton Football Club is delighted to confirm fans will return to St Mary's for the Premier League fixture against Leeds United on Tuesday the 18th of May, kick-off at 6 p.m. Subject to government confirmation. Due to government restrictions, around 8,000 tickets will be available for the match to ensure the safety and well-being of supporters and staff. The attendance of supporters at this match is subject to the government confirming they'll move into step 3. Priority for tickets will be given to supporters that bought a 2020-21 season ticket, regardless of whether they claimed a refund or kept credit on their ticketing account. I believe the first dibs go to the ones that were supposed to attend West Ham, that was then sadly cancelled. So those are the first dibs on the tickets, and then obviously season ticket holders who bought a 2021 season ticket. Yeah. Although Mark has some comments to make on that.
So basically, Mark, what I would say is initially when the news broke, I thought about it. I did genuinely think about it, and I was thinking about applying for a ticket. And then I thought to myself, I haven't had my second job yet, and I'm not likely to get it till early June. So I thought, no, I won't do it this time round. It makes little odds to me, really, because at the end of the day, I haven't seen any football live this season. So, little odds there. One thing that I did find slightly distressing was the fact that I have a friend that sits in the cheap seats. The cheap seats are $3.99. and basically he was told he couldn't sit in his normal season ticket seat, but obviously he could sit in other areas of the ground. I don't think the Itchen was available neither. I've got a funny feeling the Itchen wasn't available, but you could sit in areas in the chapel, the Kingsland, and obviously the Northern, right? And so he turned around and he said, "Oh, I'll take a ticket in the Kingsland," right? Now, the club made the decision, rather than deducting money that obviously season ticket holders have carried over for next season, right? They're actually charging you just on the basis of the ticket, this one ticket for this one game against Leeds. And my friend got charged 40 quid.
Wow.
Right? And in the area where he sits, because he sits in the cheap seats at St Mary's, it works out at £22 a game. You know, so who's winning there, you know?
Definitely the club. Well, talking of winning, Saints Collector's Edition out now. This is Saints is back. Southampton's popular matchday publication will return for the club's final home game in the season against Leeds United on Tuesday, the 18th of May. And Mark can tell you when the last one came out. This one's going to be £4.
Yeah, it's a strange one, Mark, because they'd come to an agreement with some sort of, I don't know, let's say distributor of programs, right? And they basically put out that they were doing programs next season for every game, and basically if you were interested, you could get, a set of the programs for the season, at a discounted price, right? So I'm assuming that didn't take off, because obviously the fans thought, well, why would a bad program do a match I'm not going to be able to attend, right?
Yeah.
So effectively the club took the decision after the Chelsea game, because all the main players, all the big six, had already played at the stadium.
Yep.
Being the cynic that I am, right? And obviously people want to buy those programs even if they're not going to the game, right? They took the decision after the Chelsea home game to withdraw the rest of the home programs.
Yep.
I think one of the reasons, and I don't blame the club, I think one of the reasons was it was not financially viable for them. But obviously, of course, now they have to sort of produce a program, I think, even though it might be a bit of a loss leader, because there's only going to be 9,000 people in the stadium. But I think, when fans are returning, you've got the, you can't not have a program.
No.
Yeah,
no, I agree with that. So moving on to the sportsbet.io goal of the month for April. 3 absolute beautiful goals, to be fair. Stuart Armstrong, Shannon Siverite with an absolute corker, the pick of the bunch for me. Rachel Panting with an absolute rasper, caught it first time, bent it right in the top corner, top bins, gave the goalkeeper no chance. Absolute winner chicken dinner for me, but no doubt, Mark, you and me will get used to that by Saints fans again, and Stuart Stretch Armstrong will be the one that gets it.
So basically, right, again, we agree on the goal of the month, right? And we both agree that we know that our fan base will be sat there going, Stuart Armstrong, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Stretch Armstrong.
And the thing is I just hope that somebody somewhere actually watches the video of the goals and turns around and says, because I've got to be honest, Mark, before her goal, that Shea Adams was my goal of the season, right? But and I know that there's polls that go on and they involve the first team, but if you included all the goals this season, that Rachel Panting goal, that was scored, that's my favourite of the whole season. It has been Saint's best goal this season for me.
For me, it's several things as well. It's how far out it is, the timing of it. She hits it first time, and it's unerringly accurate. It just goes right in the top corner.
Yeah, and just remember, it's a winner with about 80 minutes on the clock.
Not only that, it was also a winner. It was also a winner against Lewis in the FA Cup, which makes it even more special. What a way to win a game.
Thanks for remembering the opposition. I was going to say, I know they're in Sussex somewhere, but I can't remember where it was.
Yep.
But
place Lewis, not too far from Brighton.
I watched the game live, and when I tell you, I was up out of my seat going, I got one in.
Yeah.
It was an absolute cracker.
It was.
We're going to have to see if we can get Rachel Panther on, mate. She scores some screamers, I tell you.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm definitely going to try and sort something out on that one. We'll definitely try and get her on the show if we can. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Moving on to the last story, Ryan Bertrand, it's been announced, is to depart Saints. The last parting words he said was he'd like to retain as a coach or a fan in the future. Led to believe that Arsenal will probably in for him, so he can link back up with Cedric. Although I noticed that Jose Font, when it was announced Bertrand was leaving, Jose Font took to Instagram and put, "It's the champ." So is he going to rock up with Lille? No, probably not, but, anything's possible. I guess it's football.
So, yeah, I mean, it's I don't like the way it's been handled, Mark.
No.
There was a little bit of an element of the long kiss goodnight here, because obviously, look, I don't know what's happened on both sides of the fence.
I was thinking about this earlier, Mark, and my take on it was, for me, it's like pistols at dawn, okay? So the club come out, or Ralph's come out and said, we offered a contract, it's been refused from Ryan's side. Ryan then comes out and says, I wasn't offered a contract. It's almost like pistols at dawn or handbags at 10 paces, It's all a little bit handbags, it's a little bit silly. The bottom line for me is the club obviously think, like they did with Fonte, that Ryan Bertrand's legs have gone. That's why they're not prepared to give him a longer deal than what they're offering. Jose Font is still playing the game at 37 and has literally just won the title with Lille. So he's obviously not struggling too much. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ryan leave and actually do all right wherever he goes. And if it's Arsenal, he's going to have to be on his game. For me, he's been a great servant to the club, but this has left, the way it's been dealt with, it's leaving a bit of a sour taste at the moment, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, all I would say is Ryan's been a great servant to the club.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talk about other people, but actually, when you look at his tenure at the club, and you look at some of the highlights that he's been involved with, finished or has ever finished in 6th place, and the League Cup defeat in the final. He also played in 2 FA Cup semi-finals.
Yeah.
And he's been to Europe with us twice.
Yep.
But the thing for me very quickly, Mark, was the reason why I was annoyed about it was that nobody seems to really be telling the truth on it. I probably suspect that the club did offer a contract and it was rejected.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad that they've made the decision that they've made, but they should have made it earlier and just said, we're moving on to new targets. But I'm hearing from what you told me today that they're no close to signing a left back, and you're thinking, what are we doing?
Well, this backs up what I said, and I don't know if anyone agreed with me. They might not have done, but it backs up what I said when I said I don't think they should let Matt Targett go. I don't think they should have done. But yeah, Ralph has insinuated, or Ralph has hinted that Saints are very far away from a replacement. Yeah,
the only other thing I want to say, and we'll move on, mate, is Ryan Bertrand. When the Glenfell Tower happened, Ryan Bertrand has properties around London, and I know that he opened up his properties to the people so that they could stay there till they got rehoused.
Yeah,
so again, a lot of stuff doesn't get mentioned that goes on off the pitch. But
in all fairness, Mark, sorry, carry on.
I just want to say that I wish Ryan well, And I've got a sneaking suspicion that he will come back to the club.
But in all fairness as well, a lot of Saints fans wouldn't know, but Ryan actually does still live in London. So a move to Arsenal wouldn't be off the cards. It would make sense. He still lives in London, so if he ends up at a London club, it makes sense.
He lives opposite Chelsea's training ground, mate. That's where he lives.
So there you go. So that brings us to the end of that section of the podcast today. So we're going to give you another little jingle. And when we come back from that, we'll be doing the second half. So, yeah, we're going to do the second half of the show for you in a moment after we've just finished that section there. Going to give you a little jingle. Coming up in the second half of the Two Saints podcast show, other football news, Saints in the press, Saints transfer gossip, Saints fans forum, Two Saints preview of Saints versus Fulham and Saints versus Leeds.
Fiesta 95 FM, the Two Saints Show.
Welcome back, everybody. So, other football news. So we'll move on from there to the ESL club's fallout stories. Glazer planning talks with Man United fans. UEFA sanctioned for 9 clubs over ESL, and Juventus face Serie A expulsion over the ESL.
You're going to give us the lowdown on the punishments for the clubs, and also the punishment that Italy or the Italian FA has handed out to Juve. Yep. So the first one is the news that Joe Glazer has decided that he's going to have talks with fans groups. I mean,
he's a brave man.
Look, I applaud the fact that he's decided that he's going to have talks, but it does smack of a little bit too late. I mean, we're talking, 17 years,
Yeah.
And really,
Mark, let's be honest.
They should have been having talks with supporters that they.
He's only doing it. You and I both know he's only doing it because he got caught with his trousers around his ankles.
Yeah, I mean, it does smack of a little bit of irony, because I sort of kind of sit there and I do tend to think that Man City and Chelsea were a little bit coerced into it because they didn't want to miss the bus, right? But I do think with the American owners, so we're talking Tottenham, Arsenal, Man United and Liverpool, they knew exactly what they were doing. They signed up straight away, and I mean, we'll just have to wait and see what the fallout is. But let's hope it's not just some sort of token olive branch, because at the end of the day, I do feel that fans need to be listened to. They need to be consulted. Plan actually happened, because it may now lead to supporters being much more listened to by the big six.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Anyway, over to you for the sanctions of UEFA on the 9 clubs.
Thank you very much. So, yeah,
and also
9 of the original Super League clubs, including the Premier League's Big Six, have been given a financial punishment by UEFA. The 9, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur, plus AC Milan, Inter Milan and Atletico Madrid, have also committed to the European governing body and its competitions. However, Real Madrid, Barcelona and Juventus are set to face appropriate action under UEFA's disciplinary process. The trio have refused to renounce the breakaway league. The ESL was announced on the 18th of April. Within 48 hours, plans had fallen apart, with the English clubs withdrawing after fan protests and UK government pressure. 9 clubs have agreed to make a combined €15 million, €13.4 million goodwill contribution to benefit children's and grassroots football across Europe. They'll also have 5% of UEFA competition revenues withheld for one season, starting in 2023-24. This money will be redistributed, including in the UK. Joel Glazer obviously will pay his club's portion of the goodwill contribution and the competition revenue, which will not come out of club funds. Arsenal's owners, Kroenke Sports and Entertainment, are committed to meeting all costs incurred by ESL, while the Tottenham statement said any fines will be the responsibility of the owners. 9 clubs face fines of €100 million, 86.9 million each if they seek to join an unauthorised competition in the future, and a fine of half that if they breach any other terms of the declaration UEFA said in the statement. They will also rejoin the influential lobbying group, the European Club Association. The UEFA president said, "I said at the UEFA Congress 2 weeks ago that it takes a strong organisation to admit making a mistake, especially in these days of trial by social media. These clubs have done just that." They haven't done just that. They've admitted it because they got caught with their trousers down and their pants down. That's the only reason they've actually fessed up and said, yeah, we made a mistake, we'll cough up. They're doing it because they got caught with their pants down.
All I would say in regards to the news is that I don't think, and UEFA's got to be one of the weakest bodies going. Yeah, I mean, probably along with the Premier League and the FA. But, I mean, when are the football authorities, and I include other bodies from around the world, but when are they going to actually take something that hurts these clubs? I mean, I get that at the end of the day, you're hurting supporters, but even the most ardent of supporters would realise that the only way you're really going to hurt these clubs is by giving them bans in European competitions. And I generally thought about a week ago that was what UEFA was going to do. And yet they distill it, they knock it down. It's the same thing about dealing with, racism, at UEFA. We've seen it in the incident with Glenn Kamara and the Slavia Prague player. All he effectively got, Mark, was a slap on the wrist. Don't do it again. You're a naughty boy. It's a nonsense way of dealing with a major issue. Again, this is a major issue. Now, as a supporter, of course, I don't want to hurt the fans. I don't want to hurt other supporters. But the thing is, even they recognise, right, that there has to be repercussions and ramifications because of the way their clubs acted. So, as I say, as usual, it's UEFA being, weak.
But for me, I agree with you. Like, ban them from the Europa League, ban them from the Champions League, because it will hit them where it hurts. These clubs rely on Champions League money and Europa League money, so ban them from European competition. And talking of bans, moving on to Juventus. Juventus told they face Serie A expulsion. They've been told they face expulsion from Serie A if they remain part of the European Super League. The Turin club, along with Barcelona and Real Madrid, are yet to withdraw from the proposed breakaway league. Italian Federation President Gabriele Gravina said, if Juventus do not respect the rules, they'll be out. At the time of registration for the next Serie A Championship, the club will be excluded if they decide not to withdraw from the Super League. Juve, Barca and Real continue to be committed to the project. Last week defended their involvement in the breakaway league in the face of what they call threats from UEFA. Pressure is mounting on the Serie A club Juve to withdraw. We're all a bit tired of this tug-of-war between UEFA and these three clubs. I hope this dispute can be resolved as soon as possible. I hope to be able to mediate between Juventus and UEFA, said Gravina. The rules foresee the non-participation in our championship if the principles established by the Federation and UEFA are not accepted. Well done to them. Brilliant stance, and I wish the Premier League had done it for the Big Six. Don't want to see the fans punished, but it has to stop somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. It's great to see the Italian football authorities taking a stance. Yes, you can turn around and you can say they're cutting off their nose to spite their face because this is probably the biggest club in Italy. But, at least they're taking the proper stance that should be taken. And obviously, at the end of the day, slightly different, though, because Juve have still to withdraw from the principle they signed up to. I'm really proud of the Italian football authorities because the only other two that haven't withdrawn and are still committed to it are the two Spanish giant clubs, Barcelona and Real Madrid. And I can promise you that the Spanish football authorities won't be doing anything about those two clubs whatsoever, Mark. So it's nice to see some football authorities standing up, because they're hurting themselves by doing it. But they've decided that they're taking the moral high ground, and it's great to see it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that, 100%. So moving on, Championship news, Preston appoint McAvoy as new head coach. And League 1 and 2 news, Ed Sheeran is to sponsor Ipswich Town for one season on their shirts. Tranmere sack Hill before playoffs, Wigan Athletic crowdfunder money refunded. And Forest Green want gambling sponsor ban.
Right, so let's try and rock through those as quickly as I can. So Frankie McAvoy, on the face of it, you would say good appointment. But I worry for him because Preston are one of those clubs that they're a bit like a romance novel. They like to flirt with the playoffs every season, okay? But ultimately, they never seem to get themselves in there. I mean, I actually thought that Alex Neil was doing a good job. obviously, there's an element sometimes with managers. You take a team as far as you can, and I think that was the kind of issue there. And Frank McAvoy's gone in there, new pair of eyes, obviously worked under Alex Neil. I think he was the number 2 or 3. And, he's done a fairly good job, but it's kind of like I was saying to you before we started to do the record. I mean, Wayne Rooney, before he was actually appointed Derby manager, he was winning games of football. And then all of a sudden, as soon as they appointed him on a permanent basis, it all went pear-shaped and they almost got relegated. So I think you just got to take a watch and brief on Frankie McAvoy.
Yeah, definitely.
The next story's a little bit more interesting. Obviously, Ed Sheeran. I haven't got a clue about Ed Sheeran, right? All I know is he's got ginger hair and people love his music, right?
Yeah, he does write some pretty good songs.
And as you know, I'm not one of the masses, so I would struggle with that. But what I was going to say was, it was interesting in the sense that obviously he's decided to sponsor the shirt. Now, he's not putting his name across the shirt, right? He's just using symbols, and apparently it's meant to be for a tour that he's doing next year after, whatever. But to be fair to him and the wife are regulars to Portman Road. I have seen photographs of him in various Ipswich shirts at a very tender age. So fair play to you, Ed, and I hope you're giving them a couple of million, because Ipswich Town could probably do with the money.
Definitely.
But anyway, moving on from there. This story is absolutely bonkers. So, for those that don't know, the owner of Tranmere Rovers is Mark Palios, who used to be one of the head honchos at the FA, and him and the wife have taken the decision to dispense with Gary Hill. Now, I would understand this, Mark, if we were at the end of the season, they had finished sort of mid-table, nothing left to play for. Keith Hill has basically took them into the playoffs, right? And one of our regular listeners was actually predicting Tranmere to go up via the playoffs. Well, I think you can forget about that now, because I basically think they've shot themselves in the foot. So they've got to the League Two playoffs, and they've basically decided to sack their manager. So basically, if you're a betting man, you're not going to be putting your money on Tranmere to go up.
Yep.
And then following on from there, this is a good news story, to be fair. Yep. So basically, the new owner at Wigan has said that he's going to be refunding everybody who's put money into Wigan from a supporters, perspective. Basically, obviously, the supporters were helping to keep the club running, and thankfully, the new owner has turned around and said that all those supporters that put money in, they're going to get every penny back. So that's a really good news story for me. I mean, because Wigan, and the nice thing as well is, Mark, Wigan stayed up in League One. Because the worry was that they were going to get relegated again, and thankfully they've managed to stay up in League One. Yep. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that they're able to consolidate and move forward now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and then will come one of my favourites. Fourscreen are forever taking radical stands. They have a vegan menu if you ever go to the lawn.
Weren't they also, if I'm not mistaken, Mark, weren't they also the first team to actually wear a kit made from bamboo?
That is correct. Yes, very good, very good. So, the owner and chairman, very innovative bloke, if slightly off the wall, some people would say. But yeah, I mean, and I've got to say, for once, I'm in total agreement with him because he's calling for a ban on all betting sponsorship on football shirts. And, you know, it's something I can definitely get behind. I mean, it's awful, mate, because I'm conflicted at the minute, obviously, because obviously, you know, I wear the shirts and raising across it is a betting company, and you just, it's awful. And I feel embarrassed as well because our club said it was only going to be a temporary thing for 12 months. And yeah, I mean, it just tells me that they didn't look far and wide. I mean, okay, I know we're in the middle of a pandemic and all that, but did they really look that far? I mean, I've got a sneaking suspicion that the betting company said, oh, this arrangement works well for us. What about we sponsor you on your shirts for the next 3 years, I think it is. So, slightly disappointed, I have to say, mate.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. So, women's football.
Yeah, go on.
So, yeah, moving on to women's football. Wiegman's first game versus North Macedonia. Chelsea thump Reading to seal the WSL title, and ex-Bowes boss Chip Chase dies aged 60.
Yep, so I'll cover the first two stories and then you can obviously speak about Julie Chip Chase, but trust me, she was an icon in women's football, mate.
Absolutely.
And as I say, there used to be a drama series that starred Jimmy Nesbitt and James Ellis, I think it was, on BBC One. And I can't remember what the drama was called, but it was all based around the Doncaster Bells. But anyway, so yeah, the news basically is that the newly appointed England manager, who I think takes up the reins in September, October time, her first game in charge is going to be against North Macedonia. And of course, the next story is that Chelsea, all thanks to the all-conquering Frank Kirby, basically sealed the WSL title over the weekend, and they're on for a double, basically a women's double. I think they're due to play in the Champions League final on Monday, and I think actually the national radios are going to be covering it live, so that's fairly good. You know, again, great promotion for the women's game here. And as I say, I'll hand over for you to do the tribute to Julie Chip Chase.
Yep, so former Doncaster Rovers Bowes boss Julie Chip Chase has died aged 60. The club announced that Chip Chase, who's also had spells coaching at Leeds United in England, had died on Tuesday following a short illness. She managed the Bowes for 6 years and was their director of football. She was well liked, loved and respected by everyone she met in football, and is an all-round Bowes legend. Bowes founder and president Sheila Edmonds told the club website. A tweet from FIFA said that Chip Chase had successfully given her all, passing on her passion and knowledge to inspire others in women's football. While former England players Sue Smith and Casey Stoney, now Manchester United boss, shared their condolences. Tributes paid by former colleagues, players and coaches speak volumes for Chippy's influence. At a time when the women's game was struggling for resources and recognition, she selflessly gave her all, passing on her passion and knowledge to inspire others. Our sincere condolences. Everyone at the Bowes is saddened to learn of the loss of Julie Chip Chase, a pioneer of women's football, who passed away on Tuesday morning after a short illness. Sue Smith, absolutely heartbroken to hear of the sad passing of Julie Chip Chase. She was a Donny Bowes legend as a player and a successful manager. Loved playing for you, a legend and pioneer of the women's game and a friend. R.I.P. Chippy. Loved Joe, Lily and Charlie. So very sad, said Casey Stoney. Yeah, absolutely echo the sentiments and our sincere condolences to our whole family from the Two Saints show. Rest in peace, Julie Chip Chase.
I mean, she was a massive innovator for women's football. I don't want to say pioneer because there was loads of people that came before her, but in terms of her coaching and everything else, I mean, the Doncaster Bells dominated women's football for a long, long time, and she was part of that. And actually, while you were reading that out, Mark, I can tell you that the BBC drama that basically it was based on the Doncaster Bells. It was called Playing the Field.
Right.
And it broadcast on the BBC from 1998 to 2002. It was a really good drama. I remember watching it.
Cool.
But yeah.
Okay, so I'm now gonna hand over to Mark H, who's going to run you through the ups and downs, all the league ups and downs from the Premier League down to the National League.
Yeah, thanks for that.
It's all right.
So basically, in case you were on Planet Zog over the weekend and the ensuing days, I'm going to run you through what you need to know. So basically, Manchester City have won the Premier League title. Manchester United have secured basically Champions League football for next season. We're still waiting for the other European places to be filled, so I'll come back to that next week. Relegated from the Premier League were Fulham, West Bromwich Albion and Sheffield United. So moving into the Championship, obviously going up as champions, Norwich City. Runners-up were Watford. Going into the playoffs, we have Brentford, Swansea City, Barnsley and Bournemouth. And relegated from the Championship, and they all got relegated on Saturday, were Wycombe Wanderers, Rotherham United and Sheffield Wednesday. Moving into League One, the champions in League One were Hull City. Runners-up were Peterborough United, both teams promoted. And then going into the playoffs, we have Blackpool, Sunderland, Lincoln City and Oxford United. Sadly, relegated from League One were Rochdale, Northampton Town, Swindon Town and Bristol Rovers. And then moving into League Two, Cheltenham Town went up as champions. Also promoted were Cambridge United and Bolton Wanderers. And going into the playoffs are Wycombe, Newport County, Forest Green Rovers and Tranmere Rovers. And unfortunately relegated out of the Football League were Southend United and Grimsby Town. And at the moment, we don't actually know who's going to get promoted from the National League. Obviously, there's playoffs to be played there, but currently the actual title is between Torquay United and Sutton United. So one of those will win the National League and the other one will go into the playoffs.
Excellent, Mark. Wow, that's very concise and well covered. Thank you very much. So, we're going to give you another little jingle, and when we've done that, we'll be doing the Saints Fans Forum, followed by Saints in the Press, and we'll do another little jingle after that, and then we'll be bringing you Saints transfer gossip, two Saints previews, Saints vs Fulham and Saints vs Leeds United last time out. So, we'll be starting with the Saints Fan Forum when we come back from this little message.
It's the Two Marks, C&H, on the Two Saints Show, Fiesta 95 FM.
Right, everyone, welcome back. So, the Saints Fans Forum, which took place obviously virtually. A lot of interesting stuff came out of it, Mark. They were quite open and honest, to be fair. Matt Crocker said that he felt the economy was quite poor. Martin Simmons alluded to the fact Mr. Gow obviously was following guidelines from his government, who then pulled the rug out from under him. Martin Simmons also stated that we've already started spending for the summer. Yep, apparently they're going to give Walcott a 2-year deal, so that's definitely some of the money gone already. But yeah, a lot of interesting stuff that came out of it. For once, it seemed a fairly open forum, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, all I would say is I love the fact that Matt Crocker, I misspoke about it earlier, but Matt Crocker just basically came out and said that the performances of the B team and the under-18s weren't acceptable, because he said, while I understand that, the end goal is to produce players, he said, I want to do it in an atmosphere where the teams are competitive, something that neither team has been this season. So let's hope we see a change there. He's also mentioned the fact that they're going to change the way that they recruit the young players. So be interested to see how they're actually going to do that. But other things that kind of came to the fore to me was I still can't work out, Mark, for the life of me. Has our club got money or has it not got money? I know that what was said was Guy doesn't take any money out. So basically they get all their Premiership money, all the added stuff into that.
What Martin Simmons did say is he alluded to the fact that the £76.1 million loss we've suffered has no bearing on the transfer budget.
Yeah, but see, that to me is strange, because even though I understand, from what I understand, they don't have to pay it back for 5 years, this loan, right? They don't have to start paying it back for 5 years, but they've still got to pay the money back. So surely that's got to impact somewhere down the line. It's not like everything is ring fenced, because I don't believe you can kind of work on that basis, to be honest.
No, I get that. So yeah, it was quite interesting to hear. Obviously, a lot of what they said. But yeah, I mean, look, the summer hasn't come and gone yet, so we can only assess what they do transfer-wise in the summer, can't we? And we can only assess what happens with the loss in 5 years' time, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that interested me was one of the questions was, what about having double headers? Did you hear that question?
Yeah.
And I actually found it quite interesting, because I quite like the idea, given that everything else is so poor. I quite like the idea of sitting, watching the first team play, and then the women taking the pitch at St Mary's at 5:30, staying up and watching them, because at least I know I'm going to go home happy.
I was going to say, I can't see you balking at the thought of 180 minutes of football, Mark. I think you'll quite happily sit for 180 minutes of football. I don't see you have an issue with that. Although, to be fair, I should think the women's 90 minutes is probably going to be more bearable than the men's.
That's what I mean. And, the thing is, if the women are the last team on, at least I know I'm going to go home with a smile on my face.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. So, that's all I have to add on the forum. And, I think we've covered it quite comprehensively. Unless there's anything you want to add?
No, that's it, mate.
Okay, that's cool. So we'll move on to Saints in the press. And this is Ralph Hasenhüttl stating, I still think he's a player that can help us in the next 2 years. This was Hasenhüttl hopeful of Walcott staying. And Jack Stevens saying, I'm just happy to be on the pitch. Unfortunately for you, Jack, a lot of Saints fans are very unhappy you stayed on the pitch and that you got that 4-year deal you signed not so long ago. But yeah, opportunities at Saints were frustrating. It's frustrating waiting for opportunities at Saints. Yeah, not as frustrating as seeing you get a 4-year contract and none of us thought you deserved. But anyway, moving on.
So basically, all I want to say, the first article obviously is about Theo Walcott.
Yep.
And Mark, I've made my position very clear.
Yep.
I'm lucky I don't read Barbara Cartland novels, right? And I don't read Mills and Bloom romance novels neither, right? So basically, I knew what was going to happen on the 10, right? Theo Walcott was going to come in, plenty of fanfare, and he'd probably make an initial impact, which is what he did.
Yeah.
And then it all reverted to type. He got injuries and everything else. And the thing that I realised most, right, is that the one thing that Theo Walcott, to my mind, had going for himself was his pace.
Yep.
Right? But I've already seen during the loan period that he's been with us, that he doesn't have that same pace. Now, there's people that argue that he is pacey without the football. Right? But the idea surely would be to be pacey with the football. But anyway, I just think, Ralph, SFC, what are you thinking of? genuinely, what are you thinking of? Surely that 50 grand. I mean, I'm assuming that he's going to take a 50% pay cut because, it'd be 50 grand, because he's not going to sign on for less than 50 grand. And I'm assuming that it is going to be 50 grand. But I just think that 50 grand a week could be better spent elsewhere. And that isn't me casting aspersions against Theo Walcott. I seen him play for Saints when he burst on the scene, and I thought, what a talent, and I did generally think that. Yep. But I just think to myself that this is why I say to you, Mark, is our club skint or is it not?
Yep.
So why if we have any sort of financial constraints, why are we considering spending 50 grand a week on Theo Walcott? I don't get it. And the thing is, I get all the off the field stuff, but the only thing that really matters if you're getting that kind of wage is, are you doing it for us on the pitch? And to be honest with you, the loan spell it might have been successful off the pitch for him, but it hasn't been successful for us Saints fans on the pitch. And I know there's Saints fans out there that are going to disagree with me, but those are the same Saints fans that think that there's people coming through from the B team that are going to go into the first team.
Yeah, and also, they're also the same people that are saying, Fulham are getting relegated, so Mario Lemina will be back as a Saint, giving him another chance. No. Seriously, get a grip.
Right, okay.
Don't give your head a wobble.
Okay. Seriously. Right, so anyway, I want to move on to this chestnut of a story. Right, so, right, as you know, I'm a big fan of Mohamed Salah, right? I have since the first time I seen him come out for Saints, because I thought, finally, somebody that's mobile, eats up the grounds, quick off the mark, has a good idea of his positional sense and everything else. And Ralph said he's got a big future. He's got a big future now, Ralph. He should be playing in the first team week in, week out for me, but there you go.
Well, you've got the opportunity of bringing in a Eurofighter Typhoon in Mohamed Salah or RMS Titanic in Yannick Vestergaard. I know what my money would be on. Give me a Typhoon any day.
Well, all I'm gonna say is I'm not gonna knock the Titanic because it's the only other link.
No, I'm just making reference to the fact that Yannick Vestergaard turns about as quickly as the Titanic did when it saw that iceberg mark. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, the other thing is I get that it's sort of frustrating for Jack, but he can't really have any complaints when the people that are ahead of him are doing a better job. That's all I would say. And that isn't me, saying anything necessarily against Jack, but let's be honest, the other options in the positions, he's been fortunate basically that Ryan Bertrand isn't signing a contract, and therefore, because he's not signing a contract, the chances are we'll probably see him the last home game of the season, so he gets to say goodbye to the fans. I'm expecting him to play in that game. But, of course, Jack's going to play basically because we don't have, a fullback at the minute, so he's playing in one of the fullback positions. But I think he needs to realise that, to be fair, there's a lot of people in front of him before it even gets to him. So, I would say make the most of your opportunities, show the things that you're good at, because there are some good things that he's good at. But it's kind of like I say, my biggest issue with Jack is the attention span, because you need to be, you need to be fully concentrating for those moments when you're on the pitch.
Absolutely.
When you're on the pitch.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on to Saints transfer gossip now. A report suggests Southampton or Norwich can sign 28-goal striker for £5 million. That's quite a nice price, that, Mark, actually. So VVV Venlo, who Saints obviously signed Maya Yoshida from, could accept a bid of just £5 million for Eredivisie goal machine Georgios Giacomakis, with Southampton and Norwich City interested in the Greek. 28 goals, Mark.
All I would say is, Mark, there isn't going to be, that many bargains around. There'll be a few. If you dig around, there's bargains to be had. And this is what I'm wondering about, what our scouts are actually doing.
Yeah.
I mean, what I found most disturbing about the fans forum was the fact that, they were talking about the new markets that had emerged. Basically, because as you know, we've left the EU, right? Now, the club knew we were leaving the EU around 4 years ago, and they haven't. When they were asked about had they done any, had a look at South America in terms of scouting and all the rest of it, and they turned around and said no, they hadn't. So basically, we haven't done anything. We've been sat there, and rather than looking at, I say South America, but there's other markets. Rather than looking at other markets, we haven't been doing it. And that's kind of what worries me, because it sounds to me like the recruitment, like everything else at our football club at the minute, is going to fall on the shoulders of Ralph. But just on this striker, £5 million, Greek international, banging in the goals in the Dutch league, all I will say is I would probably sign him up. Okay, he's 28, but Pella came to us at roughly the same age.
Do you know what? That's exactly what I was going to say.
He was exactly what I was going to say. Story, and he was less than £10 million.
Do you know, that's exactly what I was going to say. Graziano Pella came to us for the price he came to us at the age he came to us at. He was a goal machine in Eredivisie like this guy is, and he proved to be successful. It's a no-brainer for me. Absolute no-brainer.
Yep.
So moving on, Lincoln youngster Sean Ruffin spent time on trial at Saints.
Yeah.
I didn't really elaborate on it too much.
Interesting one. So, effectively, the manager at Lincoln City basically has turned around and said that he spent time on loan. He's meant to have made appearances, Mark, for the under-18s and the B team. But it was a couple of months ago, allegedly. But the thing that kind of worries me with this one is that unless he's going straight into the first team squad, right? I mean, is that really where our focus should be at the minute? Yep. I think there's more important things that need to be sorted out. But would he be a good acquisition? I mean, Michael Appleton, the manager at Lincoln City, I mean, he actually thinks that he could go far in the game, and they're waiting to hear back whether Southampton are going to pursue the interest. I mean, I have no objection to signing him, but I just think at the end of the day, I'm more focused on what's happening this summer in the first team squad. But, if he's a good youngster, not against signing him up,
Absolutely. We're talking of youngsters and signing them up. Saints and Newcastle are battling to sign Nice striker Evan Guesson, with the 19-year-old scoring 7 goals and an impressive loan spell at his Swiss side at Lausanne Sport. So Southampton and Newcastle are allegedly interested in him. He scored a sublime scorpion-style flick over his own shoulder last weekend. He's represented France through the youth ranks to under-18 level. 19-year-old scored 7 goals and made 4 assists during an impressive loan spell at Lausanne Sport in Switzerland. He scored a fabulous late equaliser on Sunday with a scorpion-style flick over his own shoulder with the heel of his right foot as Lausanne came back from 2 goals down against FC Zurich. So Guesson, who's represented France through the youth ranks to under-18 international, was born in Corsica and has Ivorian roots. He's over 6 feet tall, strong, fast and highly technical. Signed his first professional contract with Nice. Has been likened to Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Get him in. Blimey, that's quite a comparison. Get him in.
All I would say on this one is, if he's any good and it's a reasonable price, then I would probably take the gamble and sign him up. The only resident I have in this story is obviously he's on loan from a French club, right? And he's on loan to a Swiss team. And all I would say is, if you look at the signings that Saints have made from the Swiss league in recent years, we had a striker who, a Zambian striker, as I remember, called Mayuka,
Emmanuel Mayuka.
Who was a bit of a disaster, and he actually held the goal scoring record for the Swiss league for quite a few seasons. And then we come to our good friend, Norwegian international, Mr. El Zanussi. So while I'm excited about, I mean, it sounds, and I've seen a bit of footage, he looks a very exciting talent.
He also looks like Mohamed Salah.
Yeah, and I probably, he does remind me of him. Not the way he plays, obviously, just in the way that he looks. But what I was going to say, Mark, was if the price is right, I would sign him up, because I generally think when you look at, and I know that's probably two strikers, but the thing is you look at Shea Adams, you look at Danny Ings, and then you look at your next out-and-out strikers, right? And we're relying on Michael Omafemi or Dan Lindelöf. We're way, way weak in the striking positions. I don't know what you think about that.
No, I totally agree with you. I think we're very, very weak in that. I mean, between Danny Ings, there's an absolute chasm to the next lot. Between Danny Ings and Shea Adams, there's a big gap. From Shea Adams to anybody below that, it's an absolute chasm.
Yeah, and that's how that is genuinely how I feel. So I sort of sit and think, if you're going to get the Greek lad in for 5 million, get him in. And if you get this French lad, say, for round about 12 million quid, obviously, that I've got my own thoughts on how you offset that, but I don't want to bore the listeners because I already said what I would do.
Yeah.
But obviously, they're two affordable targets, and they're both within Saints' budget. So why not? But then we've got, the other problem is you've got other things that need to be filled. I mean, you're looking at 2 or 3 fullbacks. You're looking at possibly, an attacking. I'd like to see a proper attacking midfielder, because like I've said on the podcast previously, I'd sell Vestergaard and I'd bring in another centre half. I would try to sell Nathan Redmond if somebody wanted to take him, and I'd sign Gineppo, because those two, in terms of what they do, it's not enough, and I think Nathan Redmond's had long enough, and I just don't think that Gineppo's up to the required ability for a Premier League player.
I would agree with that. Definitely.
Awful, I know.
Right. Well, I think that's a good time to take the last break of the show, and when we've done that, we'll come back and do 2 Saints preview of Saints versus Fulham and Saints versus Leeds. Previews. Not reviews, previews.
Previews, yep. Okay, so...
Right, everybody, welcome back. 2 Saints preview of Saints versus Fulham and Saints versus Leeds United. I'm going to hand over to Mark Fash, get his thoughts on it, and then I'll come in with what I think.
Yep, so basically... Like I said, Mark, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to turn around and say that we're going to remain unbeaten till the end of the season. I think that's a fairly positive.
Okay.
And for the Fulham game, I'm going
Last time out, it was 0-0, by the way.
What was that?
Last time out against Fulham, it was 0-0.
Yes, and forget about that, because obviously Saints are buoyed by staying up. Danny Ings is back in the fold. And irrespective, I do think we'll look like a different proposition when he's on the park. Please, Danny, sign the contract. But anyway, no, I'm digressing. Basically, you look at Fulham, and they had a chance to save themselves around the turn of the year when their form actually picked up. And we were sat there and we're sort of sitting there thinking, actually, they've got a good enough squad to stay up. But ultimately, Mark, you know, they weren't winning games of football whenever it mattered. I mean, I think the only thing they really done a note from the turn of the year till the end of this season is they actually beat Liverpool at Anfield. And that was the point where you were sort of sitting there thinking, could they do it? Could they not do it? But, you know, I mean, Scott Parker's he must be a little bit pulling his hair out because now it's been, a relegation, a promotion, and a relegation with them. You know, admittedly, part of that wasn't all his fault because obviously there was a different manager in charge, Ranieri. But, you know, I do wonder in relation to where they go from here. And then we move on to the actual game. So I'm going for 4-0 Saints. I just think that we're buoyed by the fact that we're staying up. We're buoyed by the fact Danny Ings is back in the ranks. And I think we're going to see a goal fest.
Okay, well, I'm going 4 as well. Unfortunately, I'm going to temper that with a 1 because Saints' ability to concede goals at home has been legendary this season, despite the fact they were potentially on to get that 8th league win of the season, which would be the most successful home form they've had since Ronald Koeman's day. I actually think we're going to concede, so I actually think it's going to be 4-1, despite the fact Fraser Force is in great form. But Fraser being in great form does give us the opportunity of a clean sheet, but I just see them nicking one.
Right, well, as I say, yeah, 4-0 I'm going.
I actually think, Mark, I think I might go as far as trying to nail down the Fulham goal scorer. I actually think with the Ralph connection, I've got a sneaky feeling with his pace, it's going to be Ademola Lookman.
Right, okay.
Who I've got to be honest, given his form, I don't think we could go amiss and try and get him in. I wonder if they get him out on loan. If we can get him in on loan, I'd go for Lookman. His form's been very good towards the end of the season. Despite the fact of how poor Fulham have been.
He's been probably one of their bright spots. I think there's a guy called, Jakob Anderson at the back. And, you know, if we had the money, I'd have a look at him. But
yeah, let's be careful because the last person we had at back, Alexander Jakobsen, I think it was, at Saints didn't do too well. So, yeah, let's be a little bit cautious.
No, his name was actually Anders Jakobsen.
There you go, Anders Jakobsen.
He wasn't that bad, Mark, to be fair.
He wasn't that great either.
He was Swedish, he wasn't Danish.
No, that's true. No, but we've got a Dane already. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on to the game against Leeds United. Last time out, Leeds United 3, Saints 0. Patrick Bamford absolutely destroyed Saints pretty much. Helped Leeds to victory. So, if somebody could just step on his toes as he sort of walks across the pitch, that would be quite helpful. I'm not saying injure the poor lad, just, step on his feet enough to take him out of the game.
I seem to remember that the pitch that night was absolutely appalling up at Allen Road as well. Whereas, obviously, when Leeds are down at St Mary's, it's going to be like a carpet and Bielsa and the team are probably going to have a field day. But I've got to tell you, I think that it'll be attack. I don't think we'll see much in the art of defending going on. And I'm going for a 3-3. A highly entertaining 3-3. Fans back in the stadium. Obviously, Ryan Bertrand will play his last game for Saints. He'll get the adulation and everything else. I'm going 3-3.
Okay, well, I'm going 3-2 to Saints.
Okay.
Bit of a revenge mission, I think. We'll see what happens with that. Anyway.
I just want to throw this caveat in. As long as it's not 4-3 to Leeds, sorry, right? And we go 3-0 up at half time, right? And then go and lose the game 4-3. I'll never forget that Saturday.
I can remember some bad games against Leeds, and I remember one specifically. Saints fans have been goading Lee Bowyer for the entire game, telling him he should have been in jail. They did it for the entire game, whole game, all the way through, and you're thinking, just stop it. It's going to bite us in the backside and blow me down. He comes up with an 89th minute winner for Leeds. So absolutely sick, and I remember being there that day, and I was absolutely mortified. totally came back and bit us in the backside. And as I said, last time we played him, Patrick Bamford destroyed us. So, we just got to hope that we're on our game and playing with that freedom that we'll be able to play with. But yeah, that wraps things up brilliantly for me, I think. So it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me, and Saints supporters everywhere, take care of one another until hopefully you listen in next week, and thanks for taking the trouble to listen.
Yeah, and bask in the fact that we're able to relax a little bit now because our Premier League survival has been insured, at least for this season. So just to remind you, the ways to access the podcast version of the show are these. Just to remind you all, you can contact us via our email address, the Two Saints Podcast Show at outlook.com, for questions or items you'd like to hear in future shows. You can listen to the radio show on Fiesta 95 FM in Southampton and via onlineradiobox.com. Also, the Two Saints Podcast Show is now available via Spotify, SoundCloud, Overcast, Acast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music and Podbean, or via our Facebook page, The Two Saints Show, and our YouTube channel, The Two Saints Podcast Show. There we go. And obviously the email address for the show is the Two Saints Podcast Show at outlook.com for any questions, future features you'd like to see, or any feedback you want to give us, positive or negative, because we obviously can't do the show without you. And the last thing for me to say is please join us again next week when the Two Saints go marching in again.